Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder of Streamlined Properties and the team leader of Streamlined Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. Whether you are looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back to another week of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. We're on our new schedule 2 times a week. I hope you're enjoying it. We've gone from Wednesday to Monday and Thursday so we can better serve you because we have so many good guests. We had to double up, and that's thanks to you. So this is an appreciation beginning. I really appreciate it. I hope we keep bringing you the best content for the mindful approach to real estate investing. This week, my guest is Ashley Kehr. You definitely know her as the co-host of Real Estate Rookie Podcast on the Bigger Pockets Network with Tony Robinson. And guess what? She and Tony have a new book out called Powered by Partnerships. You can find that on Bigger Pockets. Everywhere, it's also in the show notes. You're going to learn a ton today on learning how to be powered by partnerships. Let's get to Ashley. This is episode 56 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Ashley Kehr. Ashley is the co-host of Real Estate Rookie on the Bigger Pockets, another one of their many, many podcasts. Also the author of Real Estate Rookie, 90 Days to Your First Investment. She started investing in 2014 and has grown her portfolio now to over 30 units. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you and to speak to you. I always start with this. Before you got into investing, did you have any interest? Because we get so many interesting answers to this question. I'd love to hear from you about how you got started and if it was even on your radar before that.
Yeah, it really wasn't at all. When I was growing up, my neighbors, they were pretty well off and the dad had a business. And I ended up working for him. I graduated as an accountant. I wanted to be an accountant. And I lasted like 4 months, I think, before I put in my 2 weeks notice. And I was like, I hate this. And so I started working part-time for him as a property manager. And even then, like I had no interest in doing real estate at all. Property management can be kind of grueling and it wasn't that exciting to me. But then he brought me into some of his other things he was doing. And at the time when I started, he was buying another business. And so I helped him refinance some of his residential properties. And then he took that cash to buy this business. And he took me to the closing table and I actually wrote out the physical checks for this high dollar amount.
Yeah.
I still get excited about it.
Yeah.
This high dollar amount. I was like, never even seen this close amount of money. And I was just like, wow, so this is how he does it. And right there at that moment, that was like a light bulb moment. I can still envision the wood paneling, pretty sure it was like an orange shag rug in this attorney's office when we were closing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for everybody to know. And the reason I ask is because actually the majority of people, real estate investing wasn't really on their radar before. Mm-hmm. But I think what's interesting in what you just said that's important is that even though you said like, oh, look, accounting's not for me. The first thing you did in your other job was use the knowledge that you had as part of accounting to help this new business. So it kind of all came together. Do you feel like that background has helped you now going forward? Because that's where a lot of people go haywire with the numbers. They can't figure out those parts.
Yes, absolutely. The guy hired me because he thought because I was an accountant, I could be a property manager. But that was a huge part of it. I was also the bookkeeper. So I'd collect all the rents coming in and then I would write all the checks. So I did all the receivables, all the payables, and that was a large part of it. And I was also managing the bank accounts. So I, had to keep track if there was enough money to pay these bills. I had to help budget for the properties, all these things. And my goal was to never go to the owner and say, you need to infuse some cash into this property. So it definitely helped having that background and being able to read financial statements.
Yeah, and now through all of your investing, do you think that I personally think that bookkeeping is so important? I feel like people don't
Mhm.
hire bookkeepers; they think they can do it themselves, and then that's what makes the accountant's job harder on the end when your bookkeeping is bad. So, do you find now, knowing all that you know, that bookkeeping is really the thing that will make the accountant's job easier in the end?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I did bookkeeping as long as possible because I'm like, I know how to do it. I might as
Yeah,
well do it, which was completely the wrong mindset. And then it was like, all these other things are making me more money than me physically sitting down doing the bank reconciliations every month. And, you can hire a virtual assistant from the Philippines that is trained in bookkeeping for
yeah,
real estate investors from
right.
$7 to $10 an hour. And as you get more complex, like I've had to transition out of that into, somebody stateside that understands more of, the complexity of what I'm trying to do. But I also hired a CPA to do my tax planning. So
Yeah.
not a financial planner, but to actually plan for my taxes. So having the correct bookkeeping and accuracy has really helped with that too.
Yeah, I think again, there's so many ways. I'm sure you've done so many rookie podcasts where they've started off so well, but there's so many ways that we can all go haywire just by not kind of keeping track of
hmm
everything. What was your first investment and how did you get into it? Because you didn't come to it thinking, hey, this is going to turn into something. So how did you get into your first one?
Yeah. So my first one, the owner of the properties that I was working for, once that started to really trigger in my mind what he was doing and kind of grasping onto the concept, I grew up with his three kids. So his oldest son was 3 years older than me. And, we grew up right next door to each other. So he pretty much beat me up my whole childhood, almost like an older brother. But he also worked for his dad in his one business. And we would talk a lot about this new business they were buying and all this stuff. So we had a lot of interaction. And so I started to kind of plant the seed like, hey, look at what your dad is doing. Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't you doing that? And he would tell me, like, well, I have a lot of money that I've saved and stuff. And it's just kind of sitting there. And I really didn't have any money. I think maybe I had $5,000 in savings at that time. So I started telling a real estate agent that, I wanted to buy a rental property. And so we found this duplex that was right in the same town as to where I was managing these other properties for the investor. And it was the first house that we looked at. And I ran the numbers basically on the back of a napkin. I was like, okay, this is what we can offer. And we bought the property all cash. Basically, how we set it up was we were 50-50 partners. We created an LLC. And then my partner that put the capital in, we actually made him a note payable. So he was paid the mortgage back. So he was paid his principal and interest back at 5.5%. So he was making
Mm,
that 5.5% on his money, getting paid his principal back, and getting 50% of the cash flow and 50% of the equity that was created in the property. So this was a great deal for him. Like now I would never do that with anyone, but
yeah.
I
You
didn't
you
have
wouldn't
a
need
ton of
to
it
now.
experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was putting a lot of trust into me. So it was like $77,000, I think. And so for him, it was basically his life savings at that point. We pretty much drained his savings account to purchase this property. So it was definitely a lot of trust and faith he was putting into me to do that first deal.
Yeah, and what do you think was the linchpin for him having the availability of trust at that level? Is it your relationship or the way you were talking about the deal? Because I know now that partnerships are so important to you and what you do, but this is really the beginning of it. What was the thing that got him over any hurdles, maybe to make sure, like, hey, this is going to be okay?
I honestly think the biggest thing was how I was transforming his dad's properties and what I was
Yeah.
doing with his dad's businesses, how I was able to go in and look at, like, okay, we need to cut expenses here, or how I was able to manage things better. His dad had laundromats and a dry cleaning service, and I had completely gone through all of the books and like found a lot of things that shouldn't have been happening, and it led to like a person being letting go. And so I think just him seeing how I was skilled at that and able to make his dad more money, that put a lot of faith and trust into me, but also that we had known each other since we were two. There was already that kind of relationship that we kind of, like, know and trust each other.
Yeah. And then as you move forward, I mean, just for listeners, what do you think some of the most important things are to help people build those relationships or find those partnerships? Because new investors have trouble because maybe they don't have the background, they don't know the lingo, but there's other ways of developing trust than just already being an investor. What have you found over your years? And you have so many recorded episodes with new investors and conversations with other seasoned investors. What would be some of your top tips for that?
Yeah. So I think like some of the things is just don't go right out and ask them to partner with you. Don't be straightforward. And Brandon Turner once told me this as to like when you go up to somebody and maybe you potentially want to partner with them is to say, do you know anyone that's interested in partnering or, lending private money on this deal? So I always thought that was a really great tip as to doing that. As far as like building the relationship, even though we had grown up together, we weren't like super close or, during college, we could, didn't really see each other and things like that. But and just having that familiar piece with each other. But really he was watching my actions of what I was doing. So the more that you can show what you're doing, and it may not even be anything real estate, but if you can show your work ethic, if you can show another skill set that you're excelling at, maybe you have another business and you can show how you've made that business profitable by having other people watch you, what you're doing. So social media has completely changed my life. So whatever you are doing, and if you're doing it successfully or you're trying to do it, share it on social media. And you'll be amazed at the people that come to you asking to learn more about what you're doing. But even if you have one successful business already, that right there is like a great advantage to get somebody to trust you with their money because you've already shown that. But another thing too is building that strong foundation for your personal finances. So like I paid off all of my debt besides my primary residence, and I shared that whole journey on social media. And you don't have to do that, but like if you can show someone you can manage your own money, you can pay off your credit card every month. Yeah. You're not racking up credit card debt. You're not maxed out on car loans and things like that. I think that is a huge advantage if you can show that you can take care of your personal finances.
Yeah, I agree. And I think social media is kind of like a mixed bag because I think you're right. I actually think the more vulnerable you are, the more it's going to help you connect to people because obviously there's a lot of people faking what they're doing out on social media, but consistency and value will always beat that in the long term. And that's where you can skip the DMs that you don't want, which are, there's a lot of garbage in there. But yeah, I think those are great points. And I think for new investors, even when you're starting to share the journey, it really helps other people know like, hey, wait, I can do this. Like everybody can do this. And I think also that background wise, what you were saying is important, about maybe you're just good at whatever you do. Somebody can have, not graduate high school, no big deal on the education, but be really good at bird dogging. And that's an intricate part for wholesalers off market acquisition where it's just a work ethic thing, or vetting the data the right way, knowing how to talk to people. Where there can be success without any, real estate investing doesn't require a background, as many of us have figured out just from hearing the stories. So what took you from deal number 1 to deal number 2 and then beyond?
So after deal number 1, we closed that in September, and then deal number 2, we closed in February. So once we got that first property, we decided to go and put a home equity loan, not a line of credit. So we did a home equity loan on my partner's residence. So it was almost like a second mortgage per se on the property. And we used that money to buy our second property. And then after that, we went and did a portfolio loan and put both of those properties under one mortgage and pulled our money back out. But instead of paying my partner back, we used that cash to buy the third property. So we started doing that. And then our next property was actually seller financing. And we did seller financing for a year. And then we're able to refinance with a commercial lender. But when we were using my partner's money for the first 3 properties, and then actually for the 4th property he went and got a line of credit then because he could get at that point in time, he could get up to 95% of his home's appraised value between his mortgage his home equity loan, and then the line of credit. So he completely maxed out his house. Once again, putting a ton of trust into me.
Yeah.
But that was how we bought those 4 properties. And then after that, I found Bigger Pockets. And to this day, obviously, I'm still a big, huge Bigger Pockets groupie. But Bigger Pockets, when I found it, I was like, wait, there's other ways that you can buy properties, because I was watching my partner's dad pay cash. And then we went and got that portfolio loan. I'm like, okay, you can refinance out of them. But I didn't have all this creative finance concept. So then when I did this offer on this portfolio, this investor was selling, I did seller financing as a piece of it. I went and got a line of credit, all this different stuff. And I was like, and it just made my mind explode. It just like opened up this whole kind of world for me. All of a sudden I was going from buying a $70,000 duplex to buying almost a $300,000 portfolio in the course of a couple of years. So that was really a big moment for me, is learning about different ways to finance properties and to buy them.
Yeah, I think Bigger Pockets has played such a big role for so many of us. Like for me, I had been investing my whole life, but just coming upon Bigger Pockets probably like 10 years ago, I was like, wait, here's all the people that I've been looking for, that I couldn't find.
Yeah.
You just see it. Okay, everybody's trying hard. And then you realize like slowly, did you start in the forums reading and then responding? And I have so many friends just from Bigger Pockets I probably never met in person, but we've developed relationships that just started just answering questions in the forum or trying to help people, figure stuff out. And I think that's still to this day is still the biggest plus of Bigger Pockets. In addition to all the podcasts, it's really the connections. Did you find that too? Like quickly you were meeting more people, finding out more information, and then able to help people because you did have, you had 3-4 properties under your belt at that time.
Yeah, when I had found Bigger Pockets, I was going into the forums and I was just reading. And then I kind of worked up the nerve to ask my own questions. And then after that is when I decided to make my Instagram account. And I just I made a brand new one. I wasn't using my personal one. And I just kind of weeded out all the white noise and only followed other real estate investors. And kind of, I would be super engaged with them. And then when I really started to develop, online relationships is when one girl messaged like 12 of us that we're all kind of in the same real estate, personal finance circle. We all seem to follow the same account, saw each other's stories, things like that. And she said, hey, I want to do kind of like a mastermind / accountability group. So I was wondering if you guys would want to meet every month and stuff. And we did that for a while. And I think there's maybe like 8 or 10 of us that committed to it and did that. So that was, a really great way for me to build. And since then, I've met several of them in person. And now I have tons of real estate friends located all over the world. So whether we just meet up to hang out or there's a conference or a mastermind or whatever it is, it really like fills my cup being around people who are like-minded and just not even just real estate, but business in general, and like have the same kind of goals or reasons why they're doing this.
Yeah. No, I love masterminds in general, but I've also found that the more people you meet, the more you realize how open most investors are. This isn't a competitive thing. I'm happy to give information to everyone else because you can gain so much by that. There's plenty of, they say inventory's down, but there's plenty of real estate for us all to buy in America. So I don't think we're hurting in that way. But how did the masterminds help you then take that to, I guess, bigger lengths in terms of like groups and making sure that you're building the right relationships and then upgrading to higher masterminds, so you can learn more, but also so you can help more?
Yeah. So the first on your part of like competition is I saw this quote the other day and it said, if you're at the bottom, it's competition. But if you're at the top, it's collaboration. And I think that is so true with like real estate investors who, they don't feel competition because they're on their way up to the top, and it's collaboration when you're up there. And I really see that a lot in real estate as to you benefit off of each other, and it's not competition at all. But if you're somebody that's at the bottom, you see other people as competition, and that's probably why you're at the bottom.
Yeah, it's hard to get up when you feel like that because you feel like you have to beat someone instead of, like you said, collaborate with someone. And maybe it takes a little longer, because you have to learn a little more, but people are generally impatient, and you do see that in the forums a lot of just people wanting to get to 10 years out in 1 year. And it just, it takes whatever it takes. But the way that you've built partnerships is certainly a great way to advance that carefully in terms of getting access and working with other people along the way.
Yeah. And as far as your mastermind question, like the first really big mastermind I went to was hosted by Brandon Turner and Terrell Yarburn. It was called the Maui Mastermind.
Yeah.
And they had
The
put it
original
on
one?
1 year.
Yeah.
No, I was in the second group.
Okay.
So they had 1 year, and then it was COVID. And I just remember watching on Instagram kind of how the friendships developed between these people at this event together. And then I saw them all at a conference together, and I was just, wow, this is like amazing. And it was something you really wanted to be a part of. And then they did it again. And there was a couple people that weren't coming back. So I was invited to it. And I just remember I was like so excited, but so nervous. I only maybe knew like 2 or 3 people then that were a part of it. And so when I got to go, and it was so welcoming and everything, but it was just like, this is so high level. I felt like I was, I had the smallest portfolio out of everyone. But that's where you want to be. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. But since that time, the meeting these people, it has just like changed my mindset. It has completely, like, I don't think of myself as that little anymore. Like, I know that I have value to bring to other people, and it may not be because I have a $100 million portfolio. There's other things that I am skilled at and I am good at. And once again, it's that collaboration thing. And I got a chance last year to flip a house with a house flipper in Seattle, one of the biggest house flippers there. And he said, all I want you to do is to film YouTube content with me. Well, I walk you through the process of flipping house. And I was like, done.
Yeah.
So
sounds great.
I put in some capital and we split the deal 50-50. And all I had to do for him to literally walk me through all of his spreadsheets, his templates, his whole process was to film YouTube content with him because he wanted to grow his YouTube following. So there's so many different ways to add value to people. And when you attend these masterminds, it puts you in front of people who are doing really awesome things, and they're all different things. Everybody's good at something, but you use each other to learn how to lean on each other for that collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And you never know who's going to go bigger or smaller, but I really like what you said, that I've always, said the amount of doors is irrelevant to me because they're not really counted correctly. You could own 1,000 doors and own 1%. That's not 1,000 doors, but you can still have huge value and own 10. And you've probably seen that a lot on Real Estate Rookie podcasts where people are coming in, 4 or 5 units, and you're like, wow, like, these people are going to do a lot of units, but they're going at it slow. So I think that's really important for everybody to know. You don't need to have, triple digits in doors to be, quote, successful or to help other people. You can, if you've done 1 deal, you can help somebody who's done 0 deals, and they definitely need that help because you're just like one rung higher.
And I've also been in the same room as people who have said, like, I grew and I scaled and like, I was just pushing so hard. But then I realized like where I grew wasn't actually where I wanted to be. I was just so focused on grinding, and I actually had to cut back because like my overhead of salaries and all this stuff was like way more than I wanted to stress about every month and all these things. And so they actually scaled back to where it's like a more comfortable zone. So I am very conscious of that. Like, I don't want to get to that point. And I felt myself get to that point around maybe 2016, I think it was, where we just bought so rapidly that I need to get better systems and processes in place. And we sold one property that we owned free and clear just to like relieve some of that pressure. We only held it for 1 year. We made 10 grand on it, actually more because we had the rents coming in the whole time. But it was still just like, okay, we need a little pressure off. Let's like take a step back. Let's regroup and like, let's get some better systems, because it was just all that excitement and energy of like, buy. We want units. And then it's like, no, who cares how many units you have? I'd rather have 1 unit that cash flows $10,000 a month than to have, 50 units that total up to 10,000. So it became that transitioning of like focusing more on the deal itself and doing less deals than doing more deals and not having, as much cash flow per.
Yeah, those are great points. I totally agree. I much rather have one deal that why wouldn't you want one singular unit, even if it's a multi, that cash flows 10,000 instead of 10 that do 100 or 10 that do 1,000. It doesn't make any sense. Over time you figure it out. But something else important that we've had through this podcast, so many people have said they left their W-2 or initial job, and then they created a much harder job because they scaled too fast, like you were saying. And you're like, wait, I thought I was going into quote passive investing, and now I have like 2x the job that I had at my W-2, and I don't know how much money I'm making. That's similar to what you were talking about, right? Did you really felt like you were close to getting there? How did you know to put the brakes on it?
Because I couldn't sleep at night.
Yeah. Great.
And that is like my radar. Like if I feel like something is going to keep me up at night, is that I don't want to deal with that. So my literal focus will be like pinpointing that thing that's keeping me up at night and figure out how to resolve it and get past it. And with like, I was just feeling stress of like things weren't organized and they were mismanaged. And I was just like, you know what? I feel like we don't have enough in reserves. We bought that last property in cash. And so I was like, okay, here's what I can do to mitigate my risk and to kind of refocus and slow down. It was like, okay, get rid of that duplex. It's one less property to deal with, 2 less tenants to worry about. And also I've freed up all this cash now that we have this large safety net that I really like to sleep at night. Yeah. So anything that is going to last year I almost did a syndication deal. And I really got distraught about it. And right now that deal is still up for sale. It's been for sale for 3 years now. And I look back and I'm like, I'm so glad that I didn't do that deal. I was really disappointed in myself. You're not going to try even. This is a great opportunity for you, blah, blah, blah. But it would have taken so much work and also been a really, really big risk because it really could have worked or it really could have gone downhill fast. Yeah. So I think about that and I maybe lost out on a great opportunity or maybe I didn't. So, but I sleep great at night. And that's what I worry about, where if I would have went on to this deal, I know that I would have been completely stressed about am I working hard enough to get it through, to get it done, things like that.
Yeah, but I think all successful investors always have the deals that got away because you can't take them all. And sure, I have lots of deals that I missed that could have been huge. A couple that I really should have got, but I have lots of wins. So I can't, if you're not having those type of missed deals, you're probably not looking enough, or you're buying a lot of bad deals, to try to soak that up. Today's show is brought to you by Streamline Properties on Market, brokered by eXp Realty. That is my on-market real estate team. We are investor friendly. We work traditional buyers, sellers, but we also work the investor sphere all the time. House hacking, short-term rentals, flipping, long-term holds, anything that you want to do. We're experienced in that arena. We work the whole state of New Jersey, Philadelphia County in Pennsylvania, Elko County in Nevada, and the Catskills region of New York. So whatever your investor needs are, you can count on us. You can go to streamlined with a D .properties. Let's get back to the show. Those are really good points. I mean, I think, trusting your gut, you have to get to a certain level, but especially since you talk to so many new investors, how would you tell newer investors to kind of know who's more truthful or who's better to trust than others, since social media has made it seem like everybody is there, but we all know from being in it, it's not always like that. And I think a lot of new investors are really looking for the rocket ship, and that can put them in a bad spot.
I also think too that there's a big misconception with social media, that a lot of people have this misconception that because somebody has a lot of followers that they are reputable, they are trustworthy, they are verified. Yeah. And that is not true at all. But unfortunately, that is the way a lot of people are conceived as to how many followers they have. Yeah. And yes, There are amazing, like Mikey Taylor. He was a pro skateboarder. He's had a bunch of businesses. He's about to hit 1 million followers. And I would trust him with my life. And he is a great real estate investor, provides so much knowledge. But there's also other people out there that I could say I've talked to directly, I've networked with, I've seen inside their business that have as huge of a following that I would never even lend $1 to.
I agree.
So it goes both ways, where you have to really vet somebody before you're giving them your money or you're doing a deal with them. So some of my steps to kind of verify with that is date the person first. Do something very, very small and minuscule with them. Don't agree. And this goes with, partners, contractors, anyone you're going to be working with. A contractor, have them paint a room before you give them 5 houses to paint.
That's a great point.
A business partner, do a joint venture agreement together and buy one property together instead of saying, let's start this LLC and we're going to buy 5 properties over the next year together.
Yeah.
So I think dating that person, but also if you don't have firsthand experience of that person as a person, referrals, talk to other people who have done deals with that person. If they go to a meetup, fly out, spend the $300 on airfare, go to their meetup and talk to other people that they network with and connect with. And then just, look at their social media, look at the comments, go through comments. And, if you see someone that says like, oh, I loved working with you, blah, blah, blah. Click on their name, send them a DM and say, hey, I might be too. Like, what were some great things? Was there anything bad that happened? Then, of course, you may see things, people commenting on there if they don't delete them fast enough. Like, hey, I had an awful experience. So those are a couple different ways to kind of vet somebody.
Yeah, those are fantastic points. And I think the more you try to connect with someone, if you can't connect with them one-to-one, the more leery I would be about doing it, because we're putting large sums of money into something. So it's like, if I sign up for something to get someone to contact me and then I get 31 emails within 3 days, like it's not good for me. That's not for me. That means anybody's fair game. I want someone who's like, let's hop on a Zoom, talk for 15 minutes. And then you're just developing, a general relationship.
If you really want to vet somebody through social media, tell your wife or your girlfriend that pretend your best friend just went on a date with this guy. Give me all the information you can. Send them down the rabbit hole, and I bet you will get more information than you even needed to know about the person.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, on Bigger Pockets in the forums, you can find a whole bunch of stuff, and that it's always grain of salt. But like you said, like if there's a post and there's 80 replies, if you search through there, you'll get an overall view of whether something is valid or not. You can take, couple swings here and there because it can always go that way. But I learned a lot, about that just going through there. And then I think one of the most interesting things, just to go back to Bigger Pockets for a second, is you can see who gives the most value in the forums because of the upvotes. So as you're new, you can kind of see like, well, this person has way more upvotes than even posts they've made. So obviously people are reacting, and then you can go see what they comment on, and you can really like scale your, adjustment there to see who you can follow. Did that help you when you were building relationships like via Bigger Pockets? And then you take that, transform it, like you said, to in-person mastermind, and those, those upvotes become real people, and you're like, oh, you are nice. Like now it makes sense.
It actually helped me find like the local meetup here in Buffalo. So that was how I found the meetup here, was that the person who created it would post about it all the time. And then I would start to see the people who would do the like button on it. And so I was like, oh, these are other people attending it and stuff. And then I could reach out to them before the meetup even happened. So like my one big recommendation is, if you are going to a meetup or networking event and you're going by yourself, you don't know anyone, and that like scares you like it did me, is go to, the meetup page, whether it's on Bigger Pockets or on Facebook or meetup.com, wherever, and look at somebody that has marked their attending and message them, message a couple people and just be like, hey, I'm going to, and, kind of build that rapport beforehand. So you have that familiar face to look for when you go into the room. So I had messaged the person that was putting on the event, and just asked a couple questions about the event. And then when I went there, I looked for his face. I went straight to him and I
Yeah.
said, "Hi, I'm Ashley. I was the one that was asking the questions about this and this." And then we started talking, and then, other people come up and talk to you, or he can introduce you to someone since he knows a lot of the people there from doing the meetup.
Yeah. No, those are great points. So we host in-person meetups once a month with Zen in the Art of Real Estate Investing. And I like when new people come. Ours are no lenders, no pitches, nothing similar to you say.
Yeah.
And as someone who runs it, I'm always doing what you said. I'm trying to look to see well, these two people can meet, because I can't talk to everybody. So I'm trying to figure out who can connect. And I really feel like those meetups, in my opinion, are really the thing that get most people out of analysis paralysis and into action. During COVID, we did them online, but we were doing so many deals as a group online just because people finally could get the camaraderie. Like we were saying before, you meet someone and you're like, oh, look, they're just like me. Wait, you did 7 deals last year? Like, are you kidding? That's like the millionaire next door philosophy. Like, you don't know who's doing deals in real estate because it's literally everybody. And I think that really helps you, especially in person, to see okay, that they have 5 doors, they have 3, they're on their first multifamily. And then you just feel less alone. Internet's great, but in-person meetups are really where you can really transform. And so how did you do deals long-term out of those Buffalo meetups? I know you're still in the area, so it's probably still a thing for you.
Yeah, all of my deals are currently in Buffalo. The only deal that I've ever done outside of Buffalo is the house flip I did in Seattle when I partnered with that other investor. And other than that, it's still been in Buffalo.
Yeah. Do you feel that keeping the proximity is just an easier management tool for you? And obviously know the markets better than saying someone like, hey, come to Topeka and invest in this.
Yeah, I think eventually I would like to move out of Buffalo market just to diversify, to have another market. If something were to happen in Buffalo or to change, or we don't have great tenant landlord laws. They're very tenant favorable. So if those right now, I can manage it. Yeah. But if those get worse, I'd like to have another market to lean on. So that's definitely something that's in my mind. But as of right now, we actually took our property management in-house. So I was self-managing as the property manager. And then 3 years ago, I hired a property management company and it did not go very well. So that ended recently. And then I've hired a team to kind of take care of it. So right now is really just restabilizing the properties that I have, getting the systems and processes in place for the property management. It's already going better than when I had the property management company in place. But right now, I literally told myself yesterday, I'm just going to give myself 2 months to really focus on the property management, get it so that I'm pretty passive in it. Yeah. And then I'm going to go back to buying deals. Today, my agent texted me. I was on podcast recording. She texted me. She's like, oh my God, West Side, baby. It's where all the cool kids are buying. I got this property. They're not going to put it on the MLS. If you want to make an offer, you want to get under contract, here's the address, all this stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God. So it's hard to avoid. Sometimes it's hard to avoid deals, but it's funny when you tell yourself you're not going to look. Those when the best deals come to you.
Everybody's listening going, okay, I'm not buying anything. And they were just waiting by their phone.
It's like your morning affirmation, it's like, I am a kind person. I bring money into my life. I am not going to buy a deal.
Ring, ring. Here comes. I have the best deal for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's important to know, knowing your market, knowing landlord tenant laws. I live in New Jersey, but I grew up in New York and I'm very familiar. We had very, very many properties in New York over the year, still have a couple, and understanding how it works definitely helps. But so when you go out of state, how are you thinking you're going to go about it? You have so many contacts. What's going to be the first thing that you look to in terms of market? Is it data from Dave because he's a savant with the data? Or is it relationships where you have boots on the ground where you can be protected and maybe don't have to go as often?
Actually, I was just at the Limitless Expo in Arizona, and my friend Drew McCloskey was there. He was actually an intern for Brandon Turner at one point, but he built out this market analysis software and he had a booth there and everything for it. And it just recently launched. But I actually think that is going to be the first tool that I'm going to use. I'm going to use his software to analyze a property because usually like I have this whole spreadsheet I created it with Steve Rosenberg.
Yeah.
And
He's been on
so
the podcast.
he's another investor. Yeah, he's awesome.
The
And
best.
we created this together. And we're like, okay, when we look at a market, what do we want to see? And it was so funny how different our things were. Like mine was more like, what do you need, like specialty insurance, things like that?
Yeah.
Do what are the property taxes, the property tax rates, like how are they assessed, things like that? And his was like job growth, things like that. So mine was more like property focused and his was more like overall of the city. But it was so cool because we compiled all of those together in our list. But like when I'm analyzing a market, and I do it a lot for my bootcamp students, is we'll go through the list and everything like that. So I'm really excited to see how this software, kind of works and how it can kind of speed up the process. But definitely Dave Meyer, he does his, if you're a Bigger Pockets Pro member, he does his articles on like the top 10 cash flowing cities and things like that. And I will definitely use that as a starting point, because I think if you are just like a new investor, you want to do out of state and you're like, okay, here's the whole country. Do I just like throw a dart as like a starting point? And so look where other investors are investing, just because they're posting about it doesn't mean they're doing well, but maybe they are. But use that as a starting point. Maybe like pick 3 or 4 different cities and then do your own analysis.
Yeah.
And maybe one will fit for you, maybe it won't. And then you move on and find other places people are investing. But like I know one thing for me is I'm going to look for a landlord friendly state. And that will be like the starting point for me. And then from there, looking where other people are investing.
I've been thinking the same way. And I read a lot of Dave's list. Of course, I had him on this podcast and I was like, we should go like 5 hours. I just feel like he's got so much up in there in the brain.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But like, I look at a lot of the top 10 lists. And one of the things that I do is I look at the top 3, but I really just ignore them because I like what's around like 6 to 10, because I feel like those are the ones that other people are going to pass on. And I want to be on the trajectory, like going up. It's like if somebody tells you today, hey, do you want to invest in Austin, Texas? I'm like, I mean, I did like 10 years ago. You can still do well in the market, but like, that's not the kind of investment that I want to make. I want to find like, what's the town behind the town, I think is always interesting.
What's the next Austin?
Yeah, exactly. Or just like a mini one, because that's going to be full. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. And I think what's the software that he created? Because I think we can pop that.
Yeah, it's called Bright Investor.
Okay, awesome. We'll link to that as well. Yeah, and I think using tools like that is the thing that helps us. But I'm somebody who's always like, I use spreadsheets in my regular life, but as an investor for commercial deals, of course, I think spreadsheets are important. But for multifamily deals, I really feel like a lot of it's more on feel and what you know. So like you're saying, learning about the things that are important to you can really help you more. Like a spreadsheet, you can just change the numbers and then the investment changes. So have you found that in your investment? I know it's been in Buffalo, so you know that market better. But have you found that you focus more on the spreadsheet or more on the feel, or a combo?
It's definitely a combo. And that's a great point. Like in that town where I bought that first property, I've done a ton of deals there. And like at this point, I can pretty much run the analysis in my head. I look at comps there every single day, like what's sold there. I know what properties are listed for. I know what the rent is. And so I can pretty much do, and I know I can look at a property and say like, okay, the property taxes are about this, just because I know that market so well. But also like, so this property I'm going to look at tonight that my agent texted me about, this is not in my comfort zone at all. This is actually in the city of Buffalo, where I have a couple that are South Buffalo, but the rest are all rural towns. So for me, this is going to be like, okay, let's get out the practice wheels here and let's go back and like, let's do a little refresher on how to analyze a zip code. And even within cities, it changes street by street.
Absolutely. We did about 50 deals during the pandemic in Philadelphia through our group that we were meeting online in Zoom. And that was the thing that it was like you could be on one block and you can literally go a half block around, and that's a completely different trajectory of a deal flow. And that's why it's so important. And like you said, it's a completely different analysis. And I think that's really important. City investing is much different than your suburban or rural investing, because things can change so quickly in a city. You really have to be able to figure out what your alternative options are for it too. And I think cities maybe have a little bit more, but now I think everything really has at least one alternative option with short term and midterm. Have you experimented with short term and midterm as well? Is that part of what you do, or are all of yours long term rentals?
Yeah, so I started Airbnb arbitrage. So in that 40
Oh,
unit apartment complex I'd been managing,
yeah.
I decided with my one business partner to actually rent one of the units. So we rented it, we furnished it, and it's done pretty well. Like there's no attractions or any, it's 30 minutes from a nice ski resort, I guess.
Yeah.
That's really the only attraction. But and the reason we did it was because our one friend that lives out of state, he'd come back once a year to visit family. And, there wasn't room in his parents' house for them to stay. And they'd have to stay at this one little rinky dink hotel that's in
Right.
town.
Yeah.
You just say he's like, it's a horrible. He's like, look at the reviews online. Everyone else hates it too. And there was only 2 or 3 other Airbnbs. One was a super old house that looks like it still had the original furniture in there from like 1940.
Yeah.
And then the rest were all like in-house units. Like you just got the bedroom and a bathroom, or you shared something.
Not for me.
So yeah, so there was a lot of opportunity there. So that's done really well. And then last year we decided to open up another unit in that same building. And this time we did it as a medium term rental. So within a week of listing it, we got a traveling nurse in there. And then right now we're having a new gas line put in our area. So we have contractors here for the gas line for 4 months.
Perfect.
And then we actually bought a little A-frame on land, and we renovated that A-frame last year, and we've been renting that out. And we started renting it in February, and it's like slowly gaining traction. Like July, we only have 6 days vacant right now. They're kind of like spread out. So our property manager is trying to like maneuver it so maybe we can at least get every day filled. She's so determined, and I love it. And it's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. Cause usually we have a 3-night minimum, but it's like, you know what, like for the fun of it, let's let someone stay one night or whatever. But
because there are holes in there. You made such a great point though, that when people are analyzing for short-term and long-term, a lot of times they'll just put in, AirDNA, or they'll just look on Airbnb and see the amount of units, but they should be looking at the other accommodations in the area. So in rural areas, there just may not be hotel options that are like suitable for people. And just you knowing that and then putting it up and seeing like, well, you only need one person to stay in it at a time. That's not a lot, even if it's not like a tourist town. It's just providing another opportunity. And this comes from somebody who I haven't stayed in hotels in 20 years. I never liked them. So I was staying in Verbos and HomeAways the whole time just because I like having a kitchen. And I think it's just a great point. Start taking a look at what other accommodations are there and where the glut is for hotels. There's not a Marriott in every small town, and that's where you can see value where maybe other people don't, which, do you think that part of that, I think that becoming like a great investor is seeing value in things that other people don't. Like you're saying, in your area, you're able to evaluate these things quickly. And I think for like flippers to be good, you have to see something that just kind of your regular everyday people aren't, because that's how you make bigger money over the long term. Have you found that in your investing experience as well?
Yes, 100%. And that's like something that I love to do, is to like, what are ways to draw income off of this property, and how can I make it more profitable than someone else can? So another example is there was this 4-unit brick building in the town that my kids go to school in. And it's like very desolate town. There's not even a gas station in it, but there's a couple prisons. Like if you continue down that main stretch, you keep going, there's a prison, but that road connects like all the corrections officers and everything to like the suburbs. Okay. And so this 4-unit building, I just loved it. And so I actually ended up, the portfolio that I bought seller financing was from the guy that owned that building. But when I did the portfolio, I didn't buy that building. He wanted $90,000 for it. And I just didn't know what to do with it. There was 2 people at the time living in the upstairs, and then 2 commercial downstairs. And the upstairs units needed a ton of work. And the downstairs ones, I was like, I don't even know what
goes here
in there. So the investor that I worked for, he owns a liquor store. And I just like see the cash cow, and I'm like, let me look at a map. And I look at a map and I look at, where are all the liquor stores in this county? and there was 2 towns that didn't have liquor stores. And in New York State, now they have a liquor law where you cannot have like 2 super close liquor stores. They won't let you put 2 in the same town unless they've already been there or whatever. So I was like, you know what? I think that I could put a liquor store in this property. And so, okay, if I own the building, I got 1 unit filled with my liquor store. I can renovate the 2 units upstairs. That just leaves me with 1 vacant unit to fill. So I go, the seller, actually, his son approached me and this was 2 years later. My dad's just got to get rid of this property. He's like, he's got this one left and another duplex. And the other duplex that I didn't take either had a residential upstairs and a commercial downstairs. And once again, commercial in the same town. And this one was off the main street. I'm like, I don't know what I would do with it. So he's like, okay, for $60,000, you can take both of them. So before, just the 4 unit was 90. So I'm like, let me look at the properties again. So I go look at them. The duplex needed a new roof. I said, okay, take 20 grand off, 40,000. I will take both of them. Done. Deal. I didn't want anything to do with that duplex. I put the word out. Same day, I got a guy who said, I want that duplex. I'll take it. I said, okay, 20 grand. So now I've got this 4 unit property for 20 grand.
20 grand.
And we renovated the whole thing. Would cost we're all in. We were $90,000. We did all the labor ourselves pretty much, except for like HVAC and electrical and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It appraised for $220,000 when we were done. And we were all in at 90. And then we have our operating liquor store. So with that property, I look at the income streams. You have 2 residential units. So that's residential income. I have the liquor store, a business income coming out of that property. And then I also have the commercial unit that rented right away to a little boutique store. And so now I have the commercial rental income. So after that deal, I was just like, I want to find all the ways to like make different income streams to like diversify my income through every property that I buy.
Yeah, I love mixed use. It's the thing that it's pretty much all I want to buy right now. And I think it's exactly what you said. If you get a 2 residential, 2 commercial, and you want to start a business that you've always wanted to start it and it's in your area, like just do it. Like, you have the opportunity to do something, or you can really help local businesses grow and give them an opportunity to do something. Commercial leases are generally going to be longer. They're going to do build outs in some areas, so they're a little bit safer. And then you have your residential, up top. And one thing that I probably mentioned a couple times on this podcast, but for people who are looking at house hack, you can do an FHA house hack on a mixed use as long as the residential portion is 51%. And like those, one retail and 2 residential is ideal to do it if it's in decent shape for FHA. And that's like a huge win, because I think like that's just, you're going to get a different tenancy. And like you said, you have a diversified asset within one asset. You have different cash flow streams within just one unit. And that's what's so cool about real estate, that you can diversify inside of just one asset. So, Ashley, all your experience and all of your episodes of Real Estate Rookie with Tony, what is one thing that you would tell new investors now that might help them in the current economic climate? I know people are finding it hard to find deals. If they're looking for their first deal now, what's one piece of advice based on your history so far that you would give them right now?
I think look at different ways to do creative financing. So check out Pace Morby to do subject to or seller financing. And he's finding lots of opportunities with expired listings. The next thing would be to buy under market value. So even if it doesn't have a ton of rehab, whatever, there are still deals out there that, especially if you're going direct to seller and maybe you buy some mailers or you handwrite mailers and send them out, is to buying properties that already you're having baked in equity because you're buying them below market value. The next thing would be to look for properties that are currently rented out, but the market rents are so undervalued. So if you buy commercial, when you do your commercial loan, they're going to look at what your rental amount is that's coming in, your rental income. And you can get an appraisal based off of the rental income. So if you're able to purchase a property, then raise the rents in that unit, you're already adding to the value of your property without even maybe doing any rehab, just because you're bringing it up to market rents. So I still see a lot of opportunity in buying commercial property that way.
I agree.
The next thing would be to get a job or some kind of, even if it's volunteer interning or whatever, get a job in real estate. So maybe you're going to show apartments on Saturdays. Maybe you're going to do handyman services for a local real estate investor in town. Maybe you are going to get your insurance license or something like that, and you're going to market towards real estate investors and putting insurance on their properties. Find something you can do in real estate if you don't feel like now is the right time to buy. And that way you can kind of get your foot in the door, start meeting people. That first portfolio loan I got was because of I had worked for this other investor and I did all of his financing. So all of his loans he needed, I did. I sent in all the documentation. I was the contact person with the loan officer. So I already had established that relationship. Like, she's super quick and responsive at getting us information when we need it for this other investor. She manages all his finances. So it already built that type of trust.
Fantastic. I mean, I think that's what people need. They need just a little bit of a quicker guidebook. Tell us just a little bit about what the Rookie Boot Camp is before we wrap up.
Yeah, sure. So the Rookie Boot Camp is something I developed, and then I brought on Tyler Madden, another investor. And it's a 10-week program, a boot camp, where we go through 10 different steps of getting your first deal. So the idea is that you become comfortable and confident to start making offers by the end of it. Usually at least halfway through the boot camp, we already have people getting deals, and it's amazing. But we go through how to analyze a deal, how to pick your strategy, market analysis. And then we do okay, you've made offers, how to get an offer accepted. And then also we do a little bit, basically we try to get you up to closing on your property, but we'll touch on property management a little bit, or what to do after you've acquired the property too.
Yeah, awesome. And how many people are in the groups at a time?
It ranges. We've had the most we've ever had, and that's usually in January when everyone's fresh for their New Year's resolution. Yeah. We usually have around 800 people. And we just started our summer session yesterday, and we have up to, I think it's close to 400.
Wow.
50 to
amazing.
400. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Where's the best place for people to get in touch with you? Is it Instagram or your website?
Yeah. So it's Instagram at Wealth from Rentals. That's always the updated, the most recent of my life, and sharing my real estate investing at Wealth from Rentals. Then you can also find me on Bigger Pockets. And then, as you mentioned in the beginning, I have a book, Real Estate Rookie, 90 Days to Your First Investment. And then August 10th, releasing a second book with my co-host from the Real Estate Rookie podcast, Tony Robinson.
Awesome.
And it's called Powered by Partnerships. And it's all about building partnerships in real estate.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. The Bigger Pockets books and Bigger Pockets in general are so good for new investors because it gives you that broad overview, and then you can go take it in and then refer back to the books to see, am I doing everything right? And you still need to learn stuff in person, but the books are such a good guide. And there's so many of them now, all of them good. So that's exciting about book number 2. And you'll be at BPCon, I'm sure, in October.
Yes, I will be.
Well, I will see you there. Ashley,
Awesome.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so glad to finally talk to you and to have you on the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, this has been episode 56 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. I'm Jonathan Green. That was my guest, Ashley Kehr. We'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with me, Jonathan Green. And I just want to remind you, and this is always an uncomfortable part, I don't want you to think that I'm begging for you to like, subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do for the podcast, leave a 5-star review. But if you like the podcast and you think it adds value in the real estate investing sphere, then just do me a personal favor. Like the podcast, follow it, share it when you can with your friends, and be so kind as to write a 5-star review if you believe it deserves a 5-star review up against what else is out there. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you keep listening.